Hello and welcome to my latest video in my human design series, The Peripheral Perspective. Goodness knows I have been eager to put out a video for all of you wonderful generators and manifesting generators, and it's finally ready. Here I am. So today's presentation is called Dilemmas of the Sacral Being, or if you prefer, Dilemmas of the Sacral Being. Some of you may know the original messenger of the human design system, Ra-Uru, always would pronounce it sacral. For me, it has always been more natural to say sacral. So in true fifth line heretical style, I will say it my way. And I encourage all of you to say this word in the way that feels most natural and authentic to you. As long as we're talking about the same thing, that's all that matters. So the whole premise of this video is because, look, you are super important to this planet as the bulk of the population. No, it does not make you generic. It actually makes you vitally important. And your alignment is so important, not only to yourself, but truly to the entire planet. So I have no idea if I'm going to do this justice. I hope that it holds some gems for you on whatever level, whether you're coming into this information for the first time or whether you have been experimenting with your design for some time, or if you're one of the other types and you want deeper insight into generators and manifesting generators. Maybe you have many of them in your life and maybe some of them are clients. I don't know. I just trust that whoever is stumbling across this video is meant to see it, and I hope that it brings you something of value. If any of you watching are encountering me for the very first time, my name is Melanie Halpert. In human design lingo, I'm a 5-1 quad-right splenic projector on the left angle cross of wishes. And in plain English, basically, I'm a natural investigator, super intuitive, creative, and here to universalize something that is practical. And to be honest, there's really nothing more practical I've ever encountered than this body of knowledge. Obviously, it's something that needs to be applied practically to be of any value, but still, this is definitely something that has just been kind of like a natural evolution of my own, not only personal exploration, personal development, but also my professional path. I've been more than 2 decades now in the field of holistic health. My kind of main gig before I came into human design, it's Body Talk. I've been a certified Body Talk practitioner since 2008. I continue to practice. People come to see me either here in Montreal or from all over the world through virtual sessions online for pain, chronic and acute pain, for, I don't know, anything. I mean, it could be mental stuff, emotional stuff, just life path stuff. And so now for the past, it'll be, I think, 2 years in December that I've been a certified Living Your Design guide, and I'm also a human design analyst in training. I am learning how to become a human design analyst, and I am blessed to be surrounded with so many incredible colleagues and an incredible teacher. So yeah, with that, this video is dedicated to the many sacral beings of the world, to those who love them. And I guess the question is, would you like to join me on this adventure? All types are welcome. If you enjoy my videos, it would really help with the algorithm to hit that like button. And also, if you'd like to be notified about what I put out, tapping the notification bell will ensure that you know whenever I post a new video. So I've noticed that it's really helpful for me in my process, and hopefully for you in your watching experience, to break my videos down whenever I can into separate chapters. Whether there's only time to watch one of them, you want to come back to it, you want to flip around, I do my best to break them down too in the description box so that you can actually navigate with greater ease. So our presentation today has 4 chapters. Chapter 1, your only protection. Chapter 2, uniqueness of response. Chapter 3, availability is not a choice. And Chapter 4, satisfaction, the Holy Grail. So I guess let's begin. Chapter 1, your only protection. So for me, in creating this video, it just really felt natural to start with the fact that all generators and manifesting generators, you are all highly magnetic beings. The chemistry of your aura. So it doesn't matter whether you are introverted, whether you identify as an introvert, whether you have a design that is more kind of, I don't know, reclusive or reserved or antisocial, no matter what your mood is, the chemistry of your aura is open and enveloping. It doesn't matter how you feel. It doesn't matter about the state that you're in. This is something that never changes. Your aura is always, always open and enveloping, literally taking life in. So life is always coming to you. And that's why I wanted to put these really big magnets to kind of exaggerate the power of that, because this has nothing to do with trying. You don't have to try. Really, you do not have to try. It is always, always happening. And in fact, it's easy, for example, to look at, reflectors definitely would be the go-to, having no definition, every single center either being undefined or open, thinking, oh, these poor reflectors, they're so vulnerable. And yet on an auric level, you as a generator or manifesting generator are actually way more open. Their aura is resistant and sampling, and yours is wide open, open and enveloping. There is literally no auric filter. And so remember, the theme of today's presentation is all about dilemmas that sacral beings face. And one of these dilemmas, it does happen to be the fact that you have no auric filter. Something that I feel we're going to be getting into in other points of the presentation is the fact that because of this openness, there could be a lot of assumed availability. Availability is maybe one of the most important words to associate to generators and manifesting generators, because that red square that you see in the body graph, that red square, the sacral center, is all about availability, what you have available energy for. And this is not a mental thing. The most fundamental premise of the human design system is about making decisions that not only eliminate resistance, through alignment, eliminating resistance, but also leading to what is correct for you. And these decisions are not ever anything that come from the mind. So your energetic availability, what it is that you are literally available for energetically, is everything. The fact that there is no filter on the aura, taking everything in, this can be a dilemma. So I found a really great quote from Ra here on the next slide. And I actually underlined one line of this. It's a pretty long quote. I will read it. But it really makes a super important point. So Ra says, it's important to understand, if you're a generator, why it's so difficult for you to deal with your not self and why your strategy of response is so important. You're designed to respond because the outside forces are designed to touch you deeply, deeply. In other words, your gift of response is based on the fact that you don't miss anything when you get an aura coming into you. You can grab all of that in order to respond correctly. There is no guessing. Your strategy is not a compensation for what your aura cannot accomplish. It's why I always tell generators, don't worry, life will come to you. You don't have to be concerned about this or that or the other, that you'll never get it, that you'll have to pretend you're an initiator. Your aura is designed to welcome the outside. And in doing so, and being so open at the auric level, the ability then to be able to make correct responses according to your authority. So response and authority are things that we are going to cover today, but I wanted to put this slide first and really hone in on this sentence that in this quote, that your strategy is not a compensation for what your aura cannot accomplish. Your aura is so powerful. And the more that you're able to orient yourself to the fact that you don't have to do anything to make anything happen, it's like, that's not what your strategy is about. Your strategy is not to compensate. It's not there to get things. It's not there to bring things to you. Your aura accomplishes that in itself. It's just a byproduct of your chemistry. It's like, it just is. It just is. So this next slide, and this is something that has been a staple, whether I'm working with somebody one-on-one, whether I'm doing a living your design, it doesn't really matter in what context, but I love analogies. Some of you know from my other presentations, I freaking love analogies. And there is no better analogy, from my perspective anyways, than your sacral is the freaking bouncer of the club. That nightclub, you know, any given city of the world has these nightclubs where people line up, there's that velvet rope, and you're either in or you're out. Like, you're either in or you're out. It's not always logical. Sometimes there's still room in the club, but you still might not get in. There are reasons beyond what is logical, beyond what makes sense, beyond what is known. It operates in its own way. So I made this image here with this, like, you know, badass bouncer with a green light. Basically, yep, you're in, or red light, nope, you're out. No hooligans in the club. And so the thing that's super important to just be aware of is that no matter whether you are a generator or a manifesting generator, allowing your mind to micromanage the bouncer defeats the whole purpose. Imagine you are a club owner and you hire a bouncer. He's your protection. He's the one that's designed to keep what's not meant to come in out. But then instead of doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're constantly peeking out the window, going downstairs, tapping on the shoulder. But maybe this one. No, that's not the way that it works. It's like, this is the thing that you can put your entire trust into, no matter your authority. So we're going to be talking about this later, because some of you have sacral authority, some of you have emotional authority. But either way, in terms of this magnetism and everything that's being drawn to you all the time, your only protection is that bouncer that is all about what and who you are available for or not. And really, it's what I call a no-brainer. Now, so you see, I have a brain with an X in it to say no-brainer. But the whole concept of this is, it's another analogy that I use often. And I mean, anybody who has ever gone on a trip, you've been to the airport, and there's the carousel that you go to, baggage claim, and sometimes you got to wait a long time. Sometimes the luggage starts popping out faster than others, but you stand there. You're not the one that needs to orchestrate this thing, but all of a sudden, oh, the conveyor belt starts moving and the luggage starts coming out. And so your only responsibility is to stand there and wait for your luggage to appear. Can it be confusing sometimes? Absolutely. Are there pieces of luggage, unless you have like a really unique piece of luggage, maybe your suitcase is blue. There's a bunch of people that have blue suitcases, but maybe there's something distinctive on it that you're able to, on some level, there's like a certain, I don't really want to use the word recognition, but it's like there is a certain receptivity to that or not. So on an auric level, it's like life for you is like this conveyor belt where things are constantly just coming around that carousel for you to respond to. Not from the mind, but at the sacral level, that internal gut response. One of the things that I tend to see the most is this kind of lamenting about waiting. Like, what do you mean I have to wait? And there's so much pressure, not only just by life in general, but even like well-meaning philosophies and communities that are like, you know, the sky's the limit. You can be anything that you want to be. You could do anything that you want to do. You can attract anything that you want to attract. But a lot of this is mind-based. And that's where we can really get into trouble, because basically our whole lives are led by the mind. And while somewhere between 8 to 10% of the population are actually designed to initiate, the majority of us are not, certainly including the the generators and the manifesting generators of the world. So this is all about the magic of waiting. And there's a couple of quotes that really, really hit home for me that I wanted to share with you to just highlight that you are not a victim of your strategy. The question is, have you discovered the magic of waiting? So I've got a quote here by Amy Lee of I think it's Holo Human Design and also Human Design Collective. Incredibly gifted instructor and practitioner, and also Marianne Winiger, who is one of the like original gangsters of human design, who's been living her design for like 30 years and studied with Ra directly. So Amy says, waiting is not about resignation. It is not about passivity. It is an active state of receptivity and awareness. It is about being present and alert to the energy in your body, responding to life in every moment. It is what a constant state of active meditation could be as you move through life, do your daily necessary activities, manage your home or the needs of your body, all the while being alert to when the energy of your body naturally rises to meet what is in front of you. And then Marianne says, waiting in itself is so alive. It's not static. For me, it is one of the most important aspects of the experiment. But the mind cannot grasp waiting. It pushes and pulls and wants everything to happen as fast as possible. The mind does not allow the unfolding of life. The timing of the mind has nothing to do with the timing of the universe. And so both of these in their own way, with Amy Lee, a mental projector, and Marianne Winiger, who is a sacral generator, just really showing these perspectives as to the purpose of waiting and the magic of waiting, and how really this is not something that you are here to be held hostage by, but rather to be set free by. It has to do with a real shift in perspective and understanding that life is always bringing things to you for your authentic response. Now, of course, so kind of circling back around to this, while the generator and the manifesting generator has the strategy of waiting to respond, what it is that you can trust to make healthy and aligned decisions for yourself are all tied to your inner authority. Those of you who do not have that brown triangle colored in your design, it's the red square. It's all about the red square, that sacral center, which is all about immediate response in the now. So as life brings things to you, I mean, you're always responding. This has nothing to do with thinking. It has nothing to do with what your mind is saying to you about that thing. It's something that is visceral inside of you at a gut level, that is either available for that thing, that is lit up by that thing, or not. And then those of you who have that brown triangle colored in, along with that red square colored in, well, this means that instead of having sacral authority, you have emotional authority. And really the difference between these two is that whereas sacral authority, it's all about immediate response in the now, emotional authority is all about your clarity of response over time. Over time. Because you are always subject to an emotional wave that goes up and down, from hope to pain, pain to hope, hope to despair, it's not static. And again, another analogy that I use here is it's like being kind of close to the shore of a beach on a little raft. And on the shore, there's a sandcastle. As the tide goes out, it's easy to look at the sandcastle and say, wow, the sandcastle is really small. But when the tide goes in and you get closer to say, oh, the sandcastle is pretty big. The truth is that the sandcastle itself doesn't change, but your perspective of it changes. So in life, moment to moment, depending on where you are in that emotional wave, your perspective and your response to something might shift. So a certain level of consistency in response with that emotional clarity. It is not about being 100% clear. This is not about being mentally certain about anything. It really is about the way that you feel and having kind of this consistent feeling about something over time at the gut level. Whether you have sacral authority or emotional authority, that belly area of the body, the gut, is so, so important to you. And truly, there is no one size fits all. Is your sacral defined consciously? So this might be, this might be a little advanced. You might not know the answers to this. That's okay. But if it's something that you're curious about, there are really great and qualified human design professionals that can help you go deeper, because sometimes you could be reading things or you could be listening to things and not really necessarily able to relate to them, because sometimes there are things in our design that even though they're colored in and they are part of our definition, if they are defined unconsciously, what that means is that the conscious mind has no awareness of it. So you could be a generator or a manifesting generator and not even identify with that on a conscious level whatsoever. You can be you can have emotional authority and not relate to that whatsoever. And even that in itself is natural, but then becoming aware of that, it's like switching on that light, and then also finding ways in which you can tune into the signs and signals of your body This is something that is really, really important. So whether your sacral or your solar plexus are defined consciously or not can definitely be a thing. And also, is your sacral connected to the solar plexus? So if your solar plexus is defined, is your sacral connected to it, or is it split off? Not everybody has a direct connection between the sacral and the solar plexus if they are emotionally defined. And this can be something that kind of is a game changer. It changes the game when you really understand how you yourself are configured and how to tune into frequency that is really unique to you. So this really leads us well into the next chapter, which is all about uniqueness of response. There are always things in my videos that are a bit heretical, and I feel that in this chapter, especially here with the next slide, there's something that I want to bring to the table that might in itself be a little bit heretical, but I hope that it's something that really gives you, I hope it gives you something to ponder, especially because you are here to know who you are. One of the deep, deep existential questions for the generator, for the manifesting generator, is who am I? We're going to be talking about that a little bit later today, but all this to say that these are all things that are important. There is so much information out there, and so many messages of like, well, you know, this person is an authority, so you should trust them. And yet the whole point of human design is that there is nobody out there, myself included, who is your authority. Only you are your authority. So here in this segment, talking about unique configuration and response. This is very, very basic, what I've illustrated here, but it's just to show all of the different ways in which the sacral can be connected to other centers of the body. Like what can bring about that definition in the sacral center. So as you can see here, the sacral can be connected to the splenic center, the spleen. It can be connected to the root. It can be connected to the solar plexus, but it doesn't have to be connected to the solar plexus for the solar plexus to be active. It can connect to the G center, or center of identity, and it can also connect directly to the throat. This, like I said, is just a really, really brief kind of overview of the different channels that are generative, considered to be generative. The sacral center is a motor, and any channel that is connected to that center is generative, that operates through response. But your design may look completely different. There are, of course, going to be, I mean, for the most part, other channels, other centers that might be defined, but this is really to give that overview. And to say that whether you're a generator or a manifesting generator, the way that your definition is configured is very unique. You might have 100 people in a room who have this sacral to throat, pure manifesting generator, this channel, and yet be completely, completely, completely different. So the point that I want to drive home here is that each gate, okay, so each gate of our design has not only there's 6 lines, 6 colors, 6 tones, and 5 bases, basically just to say that there are 1,080 different combinations that are possible for each and every gate. And this is not even taking into consideration that we have 26 planetary activations in our design, 13 conscious and 13 unconscious, and that it takes 2 gates to form a channel. So the amount of combinations that there are is literally mind-blowing. And this is why there's a huge difference between looking at the surface, making kind of like blanket statements or more generic, things that are just more generic that apply to everybody with a given channel or a given type or design, that actually, when you get into analysis, you see that it is so, so unique. And on this slide, I mean, also I have this whole thing. Is it conscious? Is it unconscious? Is it split off? All of these things factor in. And so I have here, image-wise, I have to the right of the screen, the right of the slide, closer to the bottom, I've got just like a little, you might not even be able to read it. It's just like a little thumbnail of each of the planetary activations. So these are our teachers: the sun, the earth, the moon, the nodes, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Each of them have specific things to express and teach. And then, of course, with every gate, with every line, and then everything that's under the line, it has its own unique flavor and expression. The other little thumbnail that I have kind of like as the planets are overlaid over this is in the human design community, it's a very famous image that was created by Marianne Winiger that actually goes and shows the specificity of a gate, and then through the line, color, tone, base, how unique that is. So as a sacral being, everything is about the art of response. And this is why I've written radical response ability. Like, if there is one thing that will literally reap the most reward for you in this life, is to hone that radical response ability, your radical ability to respond. And so in that, and this is where it's going to start to get a bit heretical, is that discerning the frequency of correctness is a very, very personal thing. It's almost 5 years now that I've been experimenting with my design and that I've been studying human design. And as much as human design is the science of differentiation and it's all about uniqueness, it's overwhelming to me the actual homogenization that exists within the community, the larger community, and whether you're on social media or whatever, but even, just these kind of like blanket statements or saying that, well, this is how it should be for you. There's a lot of things that might be possible, just making certain inferences by looking at the way somebody's sacral is hooked up, or but there's this whole thing that everybody, whether you're generator, manifesting generator, you need to be making these guttural sounds. And if you're not making these guttural sounds of and then there's something wrong with you and you're not really responding. And what I've ended up seeing is that through that homogenization and that pressure, that people, it's almost like adopt this these artificial sounds. And it's not to say that I don't have people in my life who've been experimenting who really have authentic sounds, but this is only something that you can know. I mean, some people are really good at faking their orgasms and their partners will never even know. And of course, there is pressure within any given community. People want to seem like they know what they're doing, that they are really living their design. And I can see how it could be easy for any sacral being to kind of demonstrate to the other that they've got it. It's like, oh yeah, And the point that I'm trying to make is that depending on the way that you're configured, that might not apply to you. And you know what? even if this is something that was very natural for you at birth, life happened, maybe the sacral atrophied a bit, maybe your connection to your response changed, but it is never too late to rekindle your relationship to your sacral response in the way that you yourself recognize as correct. This is a lifelong process that just the refinement keeps on happening. The more that you just stick with it and practice and play and don't make it so serious and just have fun with it and tune into your body and literally see, oh, this is what my body does when something lights it up. This is what my body does when something is correct and aligned. So you might notice, or you might not notice, that you are going, making sounds. But if you don't, I just want to say that there is nothing wrong with you. And you don't, I mean, whether your heart center is defined or not, I mean, you don't have anyone to answer to. You are your own authority. So your biggest mandate is really to get in touch with your unique response through your authentic configuration and get to know how that works for you, because that is going to be the absolute most powerful and empowering thing ever. Not just going through motions to show other people that, well, you know, I've been in my experiment for this long and yeah, so I have these sounds now. Not everybody is going to make sounds, and that's okay. So that being said, I wanted to talk a little bit about manifesting generators specifically, because there is a difference. I know that there are other perspectives out there that look at manifesting generators as a completely separate type. I am partial to the original teachings, and I am very much in the, you know, just embracing the fact that whether one is a generator or manifesting generator, as a sacral being, you've got an open and enveloping aura, and you're designed to respond. The difference here is that it could be, and I'm not saying that it's not hard for generators. Of course, generators want to initiate, and they're oftentimes saying too much, doing too much, whether or not their throat is defined, obviously not connected to the sacral. But manifesting generators, I mean, you're just zipping around like so fast, and that's why I've got these lightning bugs in a jar. I don't know who, I don't know where I picked that up, but I picked it up somewhere and it really stuck with me, that it's like that ting 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 ting. If you've ever, I mean, it's kind of cruel. I would never put lightning bugs in a jar, but I don't know, kids do weird things and it's a thing. And it's like I can almost hear that sound. It's like they're just buzzing around doing their thing. And you could see there's also this Audi, you know, like super sleek sports car from 0 to 60. And this can be a dilemma for the manifesting generator. It's like it doesn't matter if you've got the sacral connected directly to the throat, if it gets there through other means. You have the capacity to do. You've got a motorized throat, but at the same time, because the sacral is defined, your action, you are really designed to move into action through response. And so the analogy that I love here is if you're driving a standard vehicle with a stick shift, what happens? I mean, do you know what happens if you turn on the car and put it into whatever fifth gear? I don't drive standard, so pardon me if my analogy isn't accurate. But all this to say is that there's a flow. You can't just start at that high gear. It's not going to work. And one of the big things with manifesting generators is oftentimes going so fast that you then have to backtrack and redo things. Exponentially so if you happen to have a third line profile, whether your third line is conscious or unconscious. That whole trial and error process, coupled with this just like fast nature, oftentimes through initiation, the mind telling you what you should be doing, and not through literally waiting for life to come to you for a response, and that response moving you into action. So this, it can definitely be a big thing. And there's Ra talked about this often. If you have a generator and a manifesting generator, you put them on a task at the same time, like who will finish first? And even though the manifesting generator is technically faster, because they oftentimes are not mechanically operating correctly, they have to go back and correct things, and then the generator ends up actually finishing first. So this is just a reminder that, yeah, you are a powerful being, you can do, but at the same time, where is that doing coming from? Have you been practicing with really tuning into your response and allowing yourself, or even just observing? Because observation, especially those of you who have unconscious definition, it's almost like the body is just doing its thing. I've seen a lot of people, especially with that pure manifesting generator channel, 3420 from the sacral directly to the throat. If it's unconscious, I have heard so many times that it's like, yeah, I'm just amazed, because I literally can observe my body just moving into action, and it has nothing to do with what's going on in the mind. So the next thing that I wanted to look at in this chapter is about sacral beings and correct interaction. Again, I'm going to be a little bit heretical in this part of the presentation, because through my own experimentation, there's something that became very, very glaring to me, and something that, again, like I was saying earlier about how your strategy of waiting is actually, you're not meant to be hijacked by it. It's meant to set you free. It's the same thing with strategy and authority, and even communicating with others. If we are approaching this from a place of being dogmatic, being mentally rigid, it's like, well, these are the rules of human design and I need to follow them in order to be correct. But there's like a huge difference. And I have another video called, I think it's Getting Messy in Your Human Design Experiment. It's either that one or Authentic Authority or Your Mind in Disguise. It might be Authentic Authority or Your Mind in Disguise, where I really had this whole other level of shattering in my own experiment, because I realized that there was a massively tangible difference between when I am organically aligned to my mechanics and living my design versus doing what I am supposed to be doing on paper, but it's almost forced. There's a certain rigidity to it, and the truth will always come out. So look, in the grand scheme of things, and we're going to just start here kind of on the right side of the screen first, and then I'm going to go into more of what I wrote, which you might have already started reading, and that's okay. But just to say that correct, quote unquote, correct interaction, okay, and this is something that is taught in Living Your Design, is with the sacral being, the only being that is really designed to initiate is the manifestor. And so you see here, I know it's not necessarily super obvious, but it's just showing that the arrow coming from the manifestor is the one that is initiating with the sacral being, and then the sacral being is designed to respond. So the manifestor can inform the generator, manifesting generator, about something, and then, I mean, if they're really kind of a conscious and aware manifestor, then if they really want something from the generator, they will inform, and then they'll say, are you available for this? There is, with the projector and the reflector, the generator, manifesting generator, can be the one to invite the projector. And then what's correct would be for the projector to then ask the generator or manifesting generator, is this what you would enjoy? Is this what it's kind of like bringing it back to them and then really asking, because on some level there's going to be a mental the sacral being is basically initiating with the projector, and it's the same thing with the reflector. So the ability to, once having invited the projector, initiating the projector and the reflector asking the sacral being a question back to see if they are truly available for that. And below that, you can see, and this is another analogy, of course, that I love, is the whole concept of the double opt-in. So have you ever subscribed to a newsletter and then you get an email in your inbox that says, did you really want to subscribe? So this is really kind of a great way to look at what happens with, I mean, it could be a sacral being with a projector or a reflector, and it could be the same thing even with two sacral beings together, because one of them is going to have to throw something out there. So correct interaction would be, well, you can see here the way that I have it is that there's a generator on the left and a manifesting generator on the right. And so one of them says to the other, hey, do you want to go and eat at this restaurant for dinner? And the other one says, yeah, I do. Would you like to? And it's like, nope. Where did that come from? And that this is something that is very legitimate that can happen, because if you are on some level the one to start something with someone, you have no idea because you haven't had the chance to actually respond to that thing. So it's always, always important, wherever possible, to be asked in return if this is what you really want, if this is what you yourself are available for. So that said, just kind of going back to what I was saying before, something that I noticed in my own experiment, I noticed it a lot with manifestors, because I have a lot of manifestors in my life, but I also have many sacral beings. And I noticed that I was always almost, instead of just naturally communicating with whoever it was that I was speaking to, in order to be quote unquote correct, I was reframing everything. So if it was for a manifestor, I was reframing everything into a statement, because I was like, oh, they're going to hate me if I ask them a question. And if it was a sacral being, reframing everything into a question, because I'm like, well, I have to ask them questions. Like they're designed to respond to questions. I can't speak in statements. This was crazy making, and it was not in any way natural. Now, this is not to say that it is not correct to inform a manifestor and to ask a sacral being. It is, of course it is, but context is everything. And none of us are designed to be walking on eggshells, afraid that we're going to be punished or ostracized. And I have seen this happen online, and I find it despicable and disgusting. And it drives me crazy to see people being shamed for this, when half of the time it's literally just forcing people into this fake correctness for the sake of keeping up appearances. Okay, I said it. Everything is about context and developing awareness. So with a sacral being, a generator or manifesting generator, it's really about knowing when a question is essential. A question is essential when it involves the use of their energy. They're not allergic to statements. And in fact, sometimes even a statement can elicit a response. So this is another one of those things where if you are a sacral being and you've been experimenting with your design and you've been kind of like in the community and taking stuff in, and then there's somebody that's speaking to you and it says something and you notice a response inside of you, and then your mind says, yeah, but they didn't ask that as a question, so it doesn't count. I call bullshit. You can respond to things that are not necessarily in the form of a question, but only you can know that. So this isn't me telling you anything. This is just me kind of opening up the box that even within this well-meaning community, you can be put inside of and be expected to be a certain way, act a certain way, respond a certain way, communicate with people in a certain way. When you have a healthy flow with the beings in your life, these things are just kind of natural. And I have noticed that with the sacral beings in my life, where I'm really starting to become attuned to where it's appropriate to ask a question. And of course, as a projector, this is one of the most important things for me, is really about the art of asking appropriate and well-targeted questions. It's not just about running around asking these indiscriminate questions just because that's putting a question mark at the end of every sentence. It's not about that. Just as it was not about me never asking a manifestor a question. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified, shaking in fear that they would get angry and explode at me if I dared put a question mark at the end of a sentence. But it's not always the case. It's really about, is this something that requires the other being's energy? So really, whether it's a manifestor and you're informing, or whether it is a sacral being and there's a response that's needed, it's like, these are things to really look at in context. And so looking further at things in context, I wanted to just take a look at something else that has been on my radar. Some of you may have watched one of my very first videos, which was about the manifestor projector relationship. And in that, I talked about the scope and parameter of an invitation for a projector and how important that was to really grasp the scope and parameters of an invitation, because again, one size doesn't fit all. And this is something that is also a real thing for the sacral being, but in a bit of a different way. And I have a couple of really good examples of this. And so you can see here on the screen, I've got this, well, it's not really a Venn diagram. It's not a Venn diagram at all. It's just, there's yes to something, and then there's no to things that come along with that thing. I can't remember what the title of the article is, but actually, just as I'm speaking, I'm remembering that there is on the Jovian Archive website, I believe it's an article by, I think it's Leela Swan Herbert. And it was an article that also speaks to this kind of thing where it's like, well, what exactly are you responding to? Because sometimes there could be multiple factors involved. I'm going to be paraphrasing. Please do not nail me to the cross if this is just kind of like a paraphrasing of what she talked about. It's been many years since I read this article. But from what I recall, she was walking by, I don't know if she was walking by a storefront or a theater or something, and there was a poster or an advertisement for something. And it really elicited a powerful response. And so to her, she thought it meant that she was responding to going to that thing, but it turns out it was just to the poster or to the advertisement itself. So that's just like a pretty simple example. But there's another couple of really powerful examples through people that I've worked with, and I feel that they're worth bringing to the table because it really illustrates what I mean by this. One of my clients was involved with a man, and her response to this man was so visceral. It was such a yes. She was so receptive to him and really did want him in her life. She wanted to be with him 100%. But the thing is that this man had a mother and a sister who were very, very involved in his life. And it was a real problem. And as much as she was responding yes to him, and I recall this super clearly, I was like, you know, things sometimes come with things. You can't separate the things. And that's why sometimes it's really important to consider the multiple factors that might be involved and to really feel into those things on a body level, whether it's response in the now or whether you need to wait for clarity over time. That there could, and this is a dilemma. Again, this is all about dilemmas of the sacral being. You could very well have a very strong and powerful, authentic yes to something, but that there are things that come with that thing that in the grand scheme of things make it a no. It ends up being a real deal breaker because you don't have room for that. That's not what lights you up, you know, however you want to look at it. Another example is actually a really, really, really close friend of mine who is going through some career changes. And she got this incredible opportunity, was literally headhunted. This opportunity came to her and it was good money. And while there was this really, really strong response to that income, I asked her, does this light you up? I asked her, will you be sacrificing what it is that you really want to be putting your energy into by saying yes to this? And it was like the biggest revelation for her, because that response to kind of, will this be sacrificing the energy that you want to put into something else? It was so overwhelming that it was not something that could be ignored. So all this to say that in a situation, there might be multiple factors involved. There might be aspects that you respond to in one way and other aspects that you respond to in another way. Other things to consider. Are you attempting to respond to a hypothetical situation? I know that there are people that love to do sacral sessions and get people to ask them questions, but something that can really be a dilemma is being asked questions about a hypothetical situation or something that is a possibility, but not something that really is concrete. Not everybody might resonate with this. That's fine. It might work for you. But what I want to say is that if it doesn't, there is nothing wrong with you. Some people can really only respond organically to what life brings now, even if it's something that they need to wait for clarity about over time. So is it about something now, or is it about a future possibility? All this to say, this was just something to, I don't know, maybe spark some new awareness in you, have some new questions to really tune into. And so moving on to our third chapter, availability is not a choice. This is something too that I am really eager to unpack with you. So just kind of like basic slide here that are talking about the centers of the body graph. Some of you may be studying human design. You may have taken LYD or just done your own research. So we have 9 centers, and there are different categories of centers. So we've got pressure centers, we've got awareness centers, we've got motor centers, 1 center manifestation, 1 center of identity. And so you could see here that I've really kind of brought emphasis to the motor centers of the body, highlighting that red square, the sacral center. And this is to say that this center that we are looking at deeply for all of you generators and manifesting generators, it is not an awareness center. Motor centers have no awareness. It really is about the power to make things fertile. It's about having available energy or not, but it's a motor, and it's a motor that can generate, that can regenerate, and that can degenerate. And it thrives, it really thrives, and it serves you best through response. So it has nothing to do with thinking or intelligence. I mean, it kind of, for lack of a better word, it knows. I mean, it's attuned to what it's available for or not. But it's not an awareness center. And this little quote here by Ra, and we know that the sacral center is many things. It is a very powerful motor. It is the reproductive, creative center of the being. It is a generative force. It creates this enormous enveloping aura that pulls and drags everything into it. It gives life to the planet. So this is a really, really, really powerful and important thing. And it's something that, I don't know, I kind of like that word that I used earlier. Like it's attuned. It is attuned to what it is available for or not. And this is not something that is a choice. It just is what it is. And so that's why in the next slide, you can see I have this image of a patient at a doctor's visit. So I don't know about you, but when I was young, I remember going for checkups with my pediatrician, and he would kind of take that little rubber mallet and he'd just like hit my knee, and then my leg, he was waiting to see if I had that reflex, that my leg would just kind of jump and do its thing. And that it was a sign that that was healthy. So the point here is that availability is kind of like that reflex. It's not something that can be engineered. It's not a decision. A reflex is like an automatic thing that the body does. I have another amazing quote here by Amy Lee, where she says, "Society, families, partners, and friends may try to reason with or influence a generator's response, or feel hurt, unloved, or disappointed when it is not what they want it to be. It is important to understand that generators have no more control over their own energy response than anyone else. It is not personal in relation to anyone else. It is simply mechanical, a mechanism of the body which guides them toward the right use of their energy and protects them from interacting with what is unhealthy for them." Again, dilemmas of the sacral being, right? Having these people outside of you, there's this assumed availability, and we can go through these motions to be who that person wants us to be, and yet we have this thing inside of our body that is constantly signaling to us as to what there really is availability for or not. And I love these two signs too: open, come in, or sorry, we're closed. It's just like that sign, the flipping of that sign, it's not chosen. It's not something that you can actually choose. Availability is specific. So in the very first official foundation course of human design education, it's Living Your Design. And one of the things that is taught in Living Your Design is really going deeper into the centers. And even though the course in itself is not specific to the gates, there is a lot of awareness that can come just by knowing, like, what is it that you're designed to be available for or not through response. This center of the body is the second most complex center, so next to the throat. The throat has 11 activations, and this center has, is it 9? Can I count? Yes, 9. So here you can see I actually did a screenshot from the definitive book of human design that breaks down each of the gates of the sacral and what it is all about. So gate 34 is all about the pure power to empower. Gate 5, the energy to set and repeat patterns and rituals in order to ensure a consistent flow. Gate 14 releases energy, money, resources to empower direction in life. Gate 29, commits to an experience completely for true discovery potential. Gate 59, the sexual energy to bond with a mate. Gate 9, concentrated energy to establish a pattern. Gate 3, brings order to the mutative pulse frequency. Gate 42, closes a cycle and brings things to an end. And gate 27, nourishes and protects for survival. So the way that your design is uniquely configured is the total roadmap as to what you are actually designed to be available for or not through response. Again, if this is not something that you are aware of in its specificity, maybe for you, all you need to know is I'm designed to respond, to really start tuning into what that frequency of correctness feels like for you, and to allow the magic of your design to just be lived through you. But then there are other people that want to know more. They want to go deeper. So there are resources for you, whether you're looking at self-study, whether you're looking at taking official courses, working with somebody one-on-one. There are definitely ways in which to get more and more kind of like dialed into your unique configuration and the way that you are uniquely designed to respond to life. Continuing on with dilemmas. So my last video was about projectors. And one of the things that I talked about in that video was the battle that can exist between bitterness and guilt. Each of the types has a signature and a signpost. The signature is like our birthright. It's what we are literally here to experience when we are aligned to who we are. And that signpost is something that, when properly calibrated, it really is there to help us get back on track. If we had no eyes to see, no nose to smell, no ears to hear, no mouth to taste, no hands to touch, and all we had was that signpost, we could get back on track. So for those of you who are sacral, it's all about frustration. That is your indication that you are out of alignment, that there is something that is not quite right. For further details about that, I have a video called Signposts of Resistance, Greatest Gift and Ally. And then we have also Getting Messy in Your Human Design Experiment. I think that those are the two where I really get into that. But the bottom line here is, I'm going to keep on coming back to this, availability. And do you tend to override your actual availability to cater to the needs and the expectations of others? So this is kind of where guilt can come in. And I have the open center, not self themes there in the background, because so many times the mental narrative, that just this broken record that can play in our head, all these things that literally guilt us into, well, guilt all of you sacral beings into being available to things that you're not truly available for. It's oftentimes because of that guilt, because of, these different pressures that there are. And then what ends up happening is that, on some level that you have betrayed your truth. So there's frustration. I don't really want to be doing this. Oh, why did I say yes to this thing again? This is really draining. This doesn't light me up. This feels like drudgery. This is annoying. All of these things. It's like, but I'm not going to be a nice person, but I can't, this is this person, I can't let them down. And the truth is that there are many of us who have designs that are actually designed to be, and I'm going to say, quote unquote, selfish, what society considers to be selfish, but what is actually a correct use of our own energy, that is more self-oriented, that is more self-contained, that is maybe more focused on our own survival, that is more that is about fulfilling the correct projections. I mean, there's so many different aspects of design where it's really, really important to be discerning as to what you open yourself up to and say yes to, and all of that. So are you designed to be more selfish than what you've been living out all these years? Are there conundrums in your design between me and we. And I see this a lot, especially with people who have like heavy either integration or individual circuitry and tribal, because it's like there's a part of you that is really kind of tapped into support, and yet at the same time it's almost like you, unless you are doing your thing for you, it's like it doesn't work out. There's an imbalance there. It will feel frustrating. You'll feel depleted, maybe even have burnout. I mean, it's definitely a possibility. So frustration, as crappy as it is actually your greatest ally, and it's not something to eradicate, ignore, or try to transcend. And that's why, even though I think it's maybe my least popular video, it's my shortest one and it's my least popular one, is all about our signposts of resistance, but it is so, so important because it explains how before coming into design, most of us, our signpost is kind of like what we're used to. So if you're a generator or manifesting generator, how much of your life is, like, depending on where you are, or was just being mired in frustration. And what has happened, if you are experimenting with design, experimenting with response, or waiting for clarity, how has that kind of served to recalibrate frustration, in the sense that instead of it being this annoying smoke detector that's going off because you're just cooking something and there's smoke, that it actually is like, there's a fire. It's alerting you at the right time for the right thing, so that you can say, okay, either like, what's going on? Did I initiate? Did I make myself available for something that I'm not actually available for? So there's always these ways to almost like reverse engineer. And this is, for me, what my experiment is all about. It's the ability to actually reverse engineer. When I experience bitterness as a projector, it's like my awareness of what is behind that is the most empowering thing. It's useless for me to stay mired in it because it's pointless. Like, it's there to serve me. And learning more and more how to use my signpost, more and more, the more that you learn how to use your signpost to actually get you back on track, instead of just becoming just kind of like getting sucked in by it, something that's actually really, really empowering. And so the last thing in this chapter is going back to the existential question of the sacral being, which is, who am I? And I feel that there can be a lot of confusion about this, especially for those of you who have an undefined G center. It can be really, really confusing. But what I want to point out here, and I have another quote. Thank you, Amy, for your incredible, just like, way of expressing your insights. This existential question of who am I is not about identity. So just so said so beautifully, Amy says, the core question for a generator is, who am I? And very closely related to that is, what am I doing? This is not about a search for identity, but rather a use of power. It is natural for generators to be about themselves and the right use of their energy. So saying generator, there's a couple of quotes here that we've had today that just say generator and they don't include manifesting generator, but it's about both. And this whole existential question is not about your identity. You might have a defined G center, that yellow diamond colored in, you might have a fixed identity. But for the generator, for the manifesting generator, that question, who am I, is really about, like, how are you using your energy? What are you doing with your energy? Are you making yourself available to the things that really light you up and bring you satisfaction? So the whole next segment of our last segment is really about that satisfaction, which is the Holy Grail. I know that we haven't talked about it much, but it's just kind of like all leading to here. That birthright, that signature, what you are truly here to experience is using your energy in satisfying ways. It's not about the flash. It's not about it's not even about what the mind thinks would be satisfying. This is really about that experience inside of yourself when you are using your energy in ways that light you up. And so I've put together this image here that I really hope kind of depicts that, like seriously, holy grail, your pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is your energy being used in ways that are satisfying to you, to you. It could be the smallest, most insignificant thing. It's not about the big picture. I mean, yes, of course there is the big picture, but the big picture is made up of many, 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 many moments in time. And even though for those of you who are emotional, like the bigger decisions, especially really needing time, there are still things in your life that moment by moment, it's always asking for your energy. So this is crucial. I mean, this is really, really crucial, not only for your own well-being, but actually for the entire planet. And this was a point that I absolutely felt was important to include, is how we are right now 5 years away at the time of this recording from a really major, major shift in global cycle. 2027, we leave behind an era that has been over 400 years, from 1781 to 2027, sorry, 1615 to 2027. We have all been operating, as a humanity with this background frequency that has really been about bargains and contracts and the tribe and communities coming together and the collective structures. And it's something that we very much take for granted. And it's something that we very much just consider to be like a fact of life, what is. But what we will soon discover is that those things have all been held up by the background frequency of this cross of planning that has dominated this last cycle. And in 2027, we are moving into the cross of the sleeping phoenix, which is a very starkly different background frequency that is very much about the energy of individuality and what you could call enlightened selfishness. All of that, we're in this together, and these collective structures, all of this kind of like socialist stuff is going to be disintegrating. And it's not because it's not about de-evolving. It's that this is actually what is happening through the precession of the equinoxes, and it is beyond what humans want. It has nothing to do with, I mean, we can make up all kinds of stories about it, but it's just something that is actually in itself very mechanical. So this is something that might actually be really, really supportive, especially for the pure manifesting generators out there who have that direct connection from the sacral to the throat. It's one of the arms of two of the arms of the cross of the sleeping phoenix make up that 3420 channel. And this is kind of a design of being busy, kind of like just busy, doing your own thing for your own self-empowerment. Now, if you add that channel in your design, that's something that is inherent to you, but now we're going to have that in part as a background frequency of the planet. Regardless of whether you are a manifesting generator with that channel, as a sacral being, you are really here to this is a life that is about you. It's about your own satisfaction. It's about doing the things that really light you up and that you're available for. So as this global cycle shift happens, that part of your nature in terms of your type is something that's also really important to embrace. All of these demands on you, this is going to be a real time for you to tune into your inner authority and to what is correct for you. Now, I don't know if this has changed since when I went to go and grab these statistics, but at the time that I grabbed them, the generators and the manifesting generators of the world were making up 66.23% of the population, which is the majority for sure. And all this to say that even one sacral being at a time that awakens to their response and starts experimenting with their design, living their design, turning that lifetime of frustration into satisfaction. It may not be perfect, but finding more and more satisfaction in doing you. Not only is this critical to your well-being, but it also is critical to the background frequency of the entire planet. Obviously, it's not going to supersede that overall background frequency, but representing this density of the population, whatever you do is going to absolutely make a huge difference in what goes on in the background frequency of the planet. And so that's really what I had to share with all of you today. I hope that it was helpful. I have been having a lot of fun making these presentations, and I appreciate all of you who are coming by, checking my stuff out. If ever you are interested in learning more about your design, I do human design personal chart overviews over Zoom. So these are great for an intro reading. And for those of you who may be experimenting for a while, but want to kind of just like look at specific aspects of your design, go further, deeper into some things. I do coaching by design via Zoom, completely customized according to your needs. I do individual sessions of 60 minutes or 90 minutes, and I also have packages of 60 minutes or 90 minutes. I do living your design, the awakening experience, mostly online. I hope to be announcing a new one soon. And I also do private and group living your design. And I will be doing soon a live weekend intensive out east here in Canada in Sussex, New Brunswick, and hopefully more locally in Montreal. So stay tuned for that. And one of my favorite things too is to do introductory human design lectures for private groups. So would you like to connect? If so, more info or to book, my email address is info@melaniehalpert.com. I'd love to thank Slides Go for their beautiful slides that serve to inspire me and hopefully you as well. And by request, I've had many people say, look, I'm not in the space for a session right now, but I really appreciate your videos. I'd love to tip you somehow. So I discovered this Buy Me a Coffee. So if you'd like to support me in that way, definitely not obliged, but always appreciated at buymeacoffee.com/Melanie Halpert. All right, well, it's been super fun and looking forward to another video when the time is right. Thanks so much and take care.